Mr. Kishore, looking back at the past 8 decades of the United Nations, what do you see as its most significant achievements in advancing disaster risk reduction and resilience? And where do you believe the global community has fallen short?
Oh, I think the achievements of the United Nations and the international community within the UN framework are really enormous. Let me highlight three. The first thing is that a systematic approach to disaster risk reduction did not exist 30 years ago. In 1994, within the UN frame, the first conference, the first World Conference was held in Yokohama. That was the first strategy for disaster risk reduction. So giving a systematic shape to disaster risk reduction efforts globally, nationally, at the subnational level and local level is a major achievement. Before this, most of the emphasis was just on responding. Shifting the paradigm from response to risk reduction is a big achievement of the United Nations. The second is that UN's work has taken naturalness, quote unquote, out of so-called natural disasters. We have established that disasters are not natural. There are hazards which are natural, there are earthquakes which are natural, cyclones that are natural, but when they interact with vulnerable populations, capital assets, economic activities, that becomes a disaster. And it is entirely within our agency to make sure that those people, those assets, those economic activities are resilient. There are things that we can do proactively to reduce risk. The third is through global cooperation, we've achieved a great deal in reducing the loss of lives from disasters. There is a huge improvement in early warning systems now. If you live in a cyclone, hurricane, or typhoon prone area anywhere in the world, compared to 15 years ago, the chances of dying are a third. A few months ago, there was a big earthquake on the eastern coast of Russia, which triggered a tsunami. Within 15 minutes, maximum 20 minutes, communities across the world, across the Pacific Rim, western coast of the United States, the Pacific coast of Japan, several islands had a warning. Communities knew what to do in the face of an impending tsunami, where to evacuate, how to protect themselves. And this kind of thing, no country can do alone.
So, looking into the future, what are you seeing? What are you working toward to improve the existing systems?
So I think the first thing I would say is that we have made a lot of progress in reducing the loss of lives from disasters, decade on decade, globally 50% reduction in some parts of the world for some hazards, such as cyclones, up to 90% reduction in mortality. But we have to, one, consolidate that progress, and two, we have to go beyond saving lives to saving livelihoods, which means that everything that we do in development, all the 17 sustainable development goals, it must be informed by risk-informed considerations. For example, if you're building a bridge, if you're building a school, if you're building an airport, if you're building a railroad, we have to ensure that it is built in a manner that it can withstand the hazards as they are occurring now and as they may occur into the future, which means a number of things. How we finance development must take into account disaster risk reduction. We have to put aside money for ensuring that disaster resilient features are included in all our development projects. The second thing we need to do is we have to empower the local level much more. And the third is that when disasters occur, we do a very good job of responding to the disasters, but how do we make sure that while immediate response is good, long-term recovery and reconstruction is also good, so that we build back better, so that the bridge that is rebuilt, the school that is rebuilt, the hospital that is rebuilt, we do not lose it in the next disaster. We know how to do it, but we have to do a better job of it.
China has played a growing role in global governance, including through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. How do you assess China's contribution to strengthening the United Nations agenda on disaster risk reduction?
China's work and contribution to disaster risk reduction is coming out of their own lived experience. China has all manners of hazards, earthquakes, storms, floods, landslides, drought. And China has done a lot at home. I think the effort that China has made in bringing together a multi-sectorial approach, multidisciplinary approach. Chinese Met Agency works very closely with Department of Agriculture, with the Department of Power and Energy. I think it is really exemplary. So there is a lot that China can contribute to the global discourse and global practice of disaster risk reduction, and China is doing that. The second is that there are very specific contributions that China is making to global disaster risk reduction efforts. I'll give you just one concrete example, which is last year at the COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, in support of UN Secretary General's initiative on early warning for all. China announced its support, technical support through dedicated satellites, dedicated space-based capacity, which will contribute to improving early warning systems, improving forecast and warning and its dissemination, not just in China, but globally. So that is the second thing. The third is that China is a major player in developing infrastructure, not just at home, but globally. And how do we ensure that that infrastructure is built to standards so that it can withstand disasters? There's a lot of technical know-how. We work, my agency, UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, works very closely with Chinese technical institutions across multiple disciplines, across earthquake engineering, the engineering in the context of water-related hazards, hydraulic engineering, hydrology, and so on. So I think it is great that China brings to bear all of that technical capability to ensure that development work in other countries, as much as it is in China, is built to last, built to withstand hazards of all kinds.
Mr. Kishore, thank you for joining us.
UN Insider.